Could West Ham genuinely, seriously, in all honesty, be considering trying to bring Ivan Toney to the London Stadium? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the West Ham Network. I'm Anton here, bringing to you a little bit of, I suppose you could say, an opinion show based upon some of the stuff that has been reported in the mainstream media. Some of the stuff that's been imported and reported in the mainstream media is regarding one man and one man only, and it's Ivan Toney, of course, getting on the score sheet for England the other night. But West Ham supposedly are considering an ambitious move, and it would be an absolutely ambitious move to try and bring Brentford's Ivan Toney to the London Stadium. Now, no doubts whatsoever that the striker role at London Stadium has been a massive problem for many a year at West Ham, in particular under David Moyes. Mickey Antonio has, to be fair to him, stepped up sometimes when we've really needed him to, but he has not been and was never bought to be that out-and-out striker. And it's said that West Ham are keen to make a potential new striker signing, but are looking at making a statement signing in particular in the summer. And West Ham supposedly think there could be a real genuine chance of trying to convince Toney to come to West Ham. Now, you may say to me, and this is why we're here to talk about it, you may say to me, come on, Anton, get over this. This is not a genuine thing. But these are the sort of rumours, right, that start to build up a little bit of pace. But there are other clubs that are potentially interested. But clubs that potentially are interested may have reasons why they won't go for a player like Ivan Toney. So Chelsea, for example, they have mega financial issues. Arsenal's are potentially looking at other targets on their list. Brentford have said that they would be open to offers for around about £100 million or an offer close to £100 million. Now, I genuinely don't see West Ham paying that money. Not for a 28-year-old prolific. Okay, yeah, he is prolific goal scorer. He's came up through the ranks and he's done a fantastic job in his career so far to date. Now, West Ham, whether you think that's true or not, this is an interesting topic of conversation because Arsenal, who have held a long-term interest in Toney, were supposedly leading the race for him, but the asking price from Brentford has been too high. But he has bounced back from his ban, scoring 4 goals in about, I think, 7 or 8 appearances. And maybe Ivan Toney, at the age of 28, will be looking for European options and a European club. And you can't look any further away from being how successful West Ham have been over the last 2 years in Europe. And it's about, can we convince a player like that? But let's look at the price tag. £100 million, 28-year-old player. A 28-year-old player. What does that bring? What does that bring to West Ham? A player of Toney's prowess, a centre forward, proper out-and-out striker, played in the Premier League now for a few seasons and has been prolific for Brentford. In the Premier League, though, as such, the player has scored a bag full of goals, to be honest with you. He has scored, 36 goals in Premier League football, and that is out of 76 games. He's had 9 assists in the Premier League as well. In his whole career at Brentford, 134 games, 72 goals, 21 assists. That's what spending £100 million does buy you. So there is an investment. There is an investment to be made. But is it the right investment to look at a player like Ivan Toney over potentially a player that West Ham have been linked to and a player that we're potentially looking at facing when we take on Bayer Leverkusen in the quarterfinals, and that is Victor Boniface. You know what? He's 4 years younger than Ivan Toney, or 5 years younger than Ivan Toney, 23 years old, Nigerian international, and he's banging in goals for the Bundesliga club as well. Of course, he's been injured a lot recently, but West Ham have shown a very keen interest in bringing him to the Premier League. And in his career so far at Bayer Leverkusen, he's only played 23 games for them, scoring 16 goals with 8 assists. But previously, when he was at Union SG in Belgium, 51 games, 17 goals, and 12 assists. And the difference is the valuation. West Ham probably could look in the European market and bring in a cheaper option. But the difference between that and Ivan Toney is one comes with Premier League experience and the other doesn't. One could hit the ground running more than the other. But the problem I've got with spending that amount of money on one player at West Ham in particular is, and I don't think West Ham would go anywhere near £100 million if I'm being really honest with you, but let's just say hypothetically we did, then what does that bring us? That's the relying on one player. That rules out a budget of us moving on other players when we desperately looking at our squad, especially when Alex was talking about it the other night, when you actually physically look at what it could look like, we could be decimated and we need to be getting bang for the buck. And that's the whole point of Tim Steidten. I don't think West Ham will genuinely be looking at the Toney deal as an option for us to bring a player in. Listen, on paper and in hindsight, it looks like a potentially exciting deal, but I don't think it's one for the West Ham of new. I think one for the West Ham of old, yes. Could he come in and could he bang us up goals and could he progress us? Absolutely, but it could also flip side and go the other way. Could pick up an injury and it could really be massively impactful. Could you imagine we signed someone like an Ivan Toney for £100 million, didn't spend money on strength and depth in our squad, which I doubt is what's going to happen, and then we become reliant on again on Antonio for the next year. It's just not an option for me. I'm not saying he's coming, but can West Ham and could West Ham really sign Ivan Toney? Really, could we at the £100 million marker? I suppose if you bring in a player of that level, of with that intent, then maybe you may look at other players that could be potentially considering leaving the club, that might look around the club and go, okay, that's a statement of intent signing. Paquetá, for example, but you know, it all really suppose depends on what West Ham do between now and the end of the season. Quarterfinals of Europa League, get through that. Semi-finals, get through that final. Win that, we're Champions League, no matter the league position. And then the ball changes, then the world changes, then the transfer market changes for West Ham. Then the whole dynamics of West Ham change dramatically. So, could West Ham really sign Ivan Toney? I suppose the answer, we don't really know. Will West Ham actually sign Ivan Toney? I don't think we will for the money that Brentford are looking for. What do you think? Put it in the comments below and let us know. Come on, your hands.